Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. Got a great former guest for us, DGD, great wide receiver, Georgia great, Sean Bailey. He's joining us again. How you doing today, Sean?
Doing good. Happy to be with you.
Awesome. I really appreciate you coming on again. Make sure to like and subscribe and share the podcast. Try to get those numbers up. We really appreciate it. Yeah, jumping right into it. Georgia coming off a bye week, much needed, going into the world's largest outdoor cocktail party of the annual Georgia Florida meeting in Jacksonville. I know you've been following the Georgia close this year. What do you think the bye week did for the team? And I know Georgia's currently number one. I believe we are 22.5 point spread, which is crazy for this series. But what would you like to see maybe this week that we've kind of struggled on in the past, or what would you like to see for the Georgia Florida game that Georgia can improve on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to try to have a complete game, to not be one dimensional. All three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. Great performances in all three. I think when you're able to do that, the team's able to kind of feed off of each other. When the defense is making plays and the offense goes out and makes plays, and then you do the stuff on special teams, you really start getting rolling. So that'd be the biggest thing. That if they can do that, they can build a lot of confidence going. Not to overlook this game, but going into the Tennessee game the following week.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I know they look really pretty complete against Vandy. I know it was a weaker team, 55-0. They look really great. Stetson looked like he was back in his midseason form. Guess one thing I wanted to ask. So I think pass rush, I think they're like only have 7 sacks, or maybe even ranked like 125th or something like that in the nation in pass rush. And then also you being a former wide receiver, how do you see them maybe kind of getting separation? And I know AD Mitchell is questionable for this game. I'm not sure what he's going to come back. And is there any like wide receivers in the younger group that can maybe step up and kind of lead us going down the stretch?
Yeah, the start kind of with that pass rush. It's almost kind of you graduate a lot of guys. They go on to play in the NFL, and last year we were led by our front seven on the defense side of the ball, and this year we're really strong on the back end, and with Jalen Carter, hurt, we're not getting what we need to get out of that front four, but I think that this is as good as any time for it to start going. It's a momentum thing, once you start getting pressure, one sack comes, it's a snowball effect. So I think they're just a step away from doing that, and like I said, it could happen at any point.
Yeah, on the wide receivers, I know you follow them. Do you think it's maybe for like Dominique Blaylock, the young freshman Dylan Bell, maybe Lad McConkey to kind of step up for AD Mitchell, or do you kind of see a combination of guys? Because I kind of see we don't have that like separation, can kind of take it to the house and blow the game wide open type wide receiver. We have like I'd say a bunch of number twos. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, we have a lot of possession receivers that are good, of maybe not getting as much separation, but catching the ball in the crowd and moving the chains. I think AD is for sure the guy that can stretch the defense, get deep, and he's capable of big plays. But the injury bug has gotten to him, and he just has to get healthy. I think once he gets healthy and he's back to 100%, if we get Arian back and use his speed to get 100%, that complements the dominant Blaylocks and McConkey type receivers. But yeah, you definitely need both. Injuries has kind of prevented us from having both those type of receivers on the field at the same time.
Oh yeah, I agree with that for sure. And then hopefully we get he's still our leading receiver, but get Bowers going again. I know he's a little quiet last game, but then also open up for Darnell Washington, who's a monster of a matchup. He made some crazy plays. Yeah, looking at the game, I know it's our bitter rival, Florida, but this is probably the biggest point spread I've seen, 22.5. they're coming off a bad loss against LSU. I couldn't believe that the LSU team put 45 on them in the swamp. Anthony Richardson's really deadly with his legs, but 6 touchdowns, 7 picks, kind of the inaccurate passer. How do you kind of see this game maybe going, and give us a prediction?
Yeah, it's a tough one to predict simply because it's just such a big rivalry. I think this year for sure Georgia's the better team. The point spread doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I don't predict it being that much of a blowout. I think it's going to be a closer game, just because this makes Florida's season to beat one of your biggest rivals. It's a huge game that's always marked on the calendar. It's a 3:30 CBS game. Played there in Florida. I think Georgia. I'm not sure what the score is going to be, but I think they win by 10 points.
Okay, so you like it close then. All right,
yeah.
I can kind of see that too. I think Florida maybe hangs around because it's a rivalry game, but I'm gonna go 31-10. I think that 23.5 point spread's kind of a lot, but I'm gonna go 31-10. Hopefully we get out there with no injuries, get the win. One other question I wanted to ask, I know it's kind of been debatable and they keep bringing it up. I think I asked you last time, but what's your thoughts on, would you like to see it stay in Jacksonville going forward, more the traditional way, or do you, Kirby, I think, likes it for recruiting purposes, maybe to kind of do it home and home, or maybe even home and home, and maybe every 3rd or 4th year going to Jacksonville? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the best solution is the average collegiate career is 4 years. Let the student athlete have a chance to have it at 4 different venues. Have it 1 year, be at home in Sanford Stadium, 1 year to be in the Swamp, 1 year to be in Jacksonville, and 1 year to be in Atlanta. I think that kind of evens it out, and it gives the college athlete a great experience. Can't remember the last time that a Georgia players played in the Swamp or Florida players played in Sanford Stadium. And then, going to Jacksonville every year is obviously a disadvantage. So you can kind of mix that up where they have to come to Atlanta once out of 4. That'd be a great thing as well.
Yeah, I think it was it like 94, 95? I think they were they were doing some construction on the Gator Bowl at the time or wherever they played it. I think they played it in the Swamp, but it was, like I said, it's been years, well over 20 something years. So I actually like that model. Rotating, it'd be good, different venues, and you get the Gainesville and Athens experience, because I mean a lot of people have never been to Gainesville. There's no point unless you just wanted to see some other. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Want to also just give a shout out to our sponsor, Viva Seltzer, vivatequilaseltzer.com. If you ever want to try it on the golf course or pregame, postgame, it's 0 calories, 0 carbs. It's very similar to having tequila. It's also a seltzer. Live life, live long, live well, live it up, with all the different elderberry, huckleberry, grapefruit. Also, if you want to put in our promo code 20% off hustle, I'll give you 20% off, and you can order it off of vivatequilaseltzer.com. Also follow them on Instagram at vivaseltzer.com. And then looking at the overall series, and I know, Sean, I believe you were 1-2 looking back. I know you think you were injured one of those years, but 2003 to 2007, just wanted to see if there's any memories that you wanted to bring up. I know it was probably a hostile environment, and definitely seeing the whole red and black half and half with the orange and blue. Just wanted to see if there's any memories from Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, my senior year in 07, one of the most memorable games, that was the year Coach Rick allowed us to celebrate. That was the team celebration in the end zone when Noshawn Marino scored. So by far one of the top memories from college. A great experience at the time. Florida was ahead in the series, and we had won once or twice sprinkled in there, but they were dominating the series, and I believe that game kind of lifted that cap. And we haven't won every time in the Swamp, but it's been more us than them since that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. I might have to say that's maybe one of the best penalties ever, the celebration, because you could just see the momentum shift, and it was almost like the evil Rick was born, as they said. He got more aggressive, and yeah, it was definitely a turning point in that series. But yeah, great. I remember watching here in Charlotte with my good friend Todd and just jumping all around. It was just a great win, and love the penalty. Thought it was about the best thing you could do to get the team and change the momentum.
For sure.
And then looking at the series, I know people debate on who the wins and losses, but we'll go with the Wikipedia 54, 44, and 2 in Georgia, 1-4 of 5 recently. And I believe Kirby's 4-2 and going in with a big spread. What's your thoughts on like the overall series or just what you've seen recently? I believe the one in 2020 COVID year, Stetson Bennett got a little banged up. We had some injuries. Felt like we just couldn't get any chemistry. I think we had who was the back? Who's at Temple? Deshaun, I forget his name. I apologize. Mathis, yeah, he just couldn't get it going after that, and felt like we hung around in the fourth quarter. But anyway, that was a disappointing loss, 44-28. But just wanted anything you want to touch on in the last several meetings?
Yeah, no, like I said, it's a lot different from when I was playing, because there up until 07 there was just a thought of when we went down to Jacksonville, something bad was gonna happen, some kind of unfortunate thing was gonna happen, and there wasn't a lot of belief. I think now the way Kirby has those guys going, it's like it's a foregone conclusion, and we're shocked when we don't play well. So we go down there with a lot of confidence, and for the most part, 4-2 is pretty good in this series, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. We have a steady head coach where they're kind of going through different coaches. They don't have an identity. We got an identity, and the tide has changed as far as who's the top dog going into Jacksonville.
I completely agree. And then I know some people are saying this is a look-ahead game because we got the big matchup with Tennessee, but I kind of go back. Kirby circles this one. He knows it's such a big rival. He played in it. And if anyone, wants to pull up that halftime speech from last year, they can pull that up. They might have some cursing in there, but I think that man's not going to let this team get a look ahead. This one's been circled, and I think they're going to get up for this game. It'll be a business trip.
Yeah, Kirby's probably one of the most process-oriented people out there. That's why he excels at recruiting. He excels at the day-to-day, at the grind. So he's not going to allow his coaching staff. He's not going to allow those players to overlook anyone, and especially Florida. And with him being a former, Georgia Bulldog himself that played in that game, he knows what's at stake at that rivalry. He knows how important this game is to Florida and what it does for their season to knock us off. So if any coach knows, he knows, and he's going to make sure these guys are keyed in and not overlooking them, that they're 100% of their focus is on the Florida Gators.
Yeah, for sure. And then Sean, have you been able to go to any of the games this year, or are you going to try to go to any?
Yeah, I was able to go to the season opener in Mercedes-Benz, watch against Oregon, which was awesome. Most Saturdays I'm busy. I got an 8-year-old and 12-year-old, and I coach both their teams. So that we didn't have a game that weekend, so that allowed me to get there. But unfortunately, it's going to be a minute before I have another off weekend to be able to head to Athens.
Well, maybe you'll get to go to Mercedes-Benz again if we play, Bama or whoever the SEC West opponent is. So
yeah,
we get. Yeah, looking ahead real quick, the Georgia-Florida game, of course, is big, but also got another really good slate of games. Ohio State, Penn State, point spread 15.5. Also, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and it's going to be Kentucky, Tennessee, which could be interesting. We'll see if Tennessee looks ahead of Kentucky. Looking at that one because we are going to play Tennessee. What's your thoughts on that game? I know Kentucky's very physical. Will Levis is healthy. They play a very physical style ball, which they could, hold the ball and limit possessions for Tennessee. How do you see that game going? And could it be, competitive matchup? I believe it's 12.5 point spread.
I think it has a really good chance to be competitive. Tennessee is obviously having an excellent year, and this is a turnaround, and Josh Heupel's doing an excellent job. But unlike Georgia, this is new to them.
Yeah.
You know, since Fulmer, they really haven't had this type of success. They haven't started the season off, undefeated like this. So I can see their guys, not being in this position before overlooking Kentucky and thinking about Georgia and slightly having a hangover from the Alabama game. So you're caught in between, coming off a high a couple weeks ago with Alabama. Then you got this big, national, what's going to be a national televised game against Georgia that could really solidify your season. And Kentucky's, put it right there in the middle. And Kentucky's a really good team with a great coach. So they could sneak up on Tennessee without a doubt and make it a game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do know if I was Kentucky that so I know they want to try to run the ball and play in physical and play defense, but Tennessee does have stout rush defense. I think they're top 10, maybe 7 or 8 against the rush, but they're like next to last, 130th against the pass, and also gave up over 300 yards against I believe it was UT Martin last year. They're a really small team they played, and
Yeah,
I know they blew them out, but that's something you got to look at. And I think if I'm no coach, but they need to try to air it out a little bit to even stay in the game. And I think Stoops tries to limit possessions. I know 2 years ago we probably had several players. Richard LeCount and Jordan Davis got banged up, and I think in the first half there was like 3 or 4 possessions, and you could tell they tried to grind out the clock. And I think they might try to do that against Tennessee because keep the ball away from them, they can't score. So this should be interesting. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but maybe Tennessee will come out a little banged up when they head into Athens.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't mind that at all. I really hope that Kentucky gives them a game, even if they don't win, but they stress them and put a lot of stress into them,
Right.
which will pay dividends for us the following week.
And then so I know we had looking at the rankings coming up. I want to kind of bring this up. So one of the best wins that's looking like is Oregon, who we just beat the soul out of them, a beatdown opening. And you saw that game, 49-3. And then you got to give it to this team with Dan Lanning. They've kind of licked their wounds and started rolling. Big win last week against UCLA, and they're in the top 8. And I think this really makes Georgia have one of the best wins. I know Tennessee beat Alabama, but for us to beat a team of top 10 caliber, 49-3. And then also we throttled South Carolina, who's quietly 5-2 with a big win against Texas A&M. You watched them up close. Do you think Oregon was just outmanned? Georgia was just on fire that game? What was your thoughts on that? And maybe going forward, would this help Georgia if they do slip up, maybe a mulligan, and this could maybe help them towards the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time Oregon just wasn't ready for the moment. Athlete to athlete, we're Georgia. You look at the roster, we had more athletes, and then we just hit the ground going. But I am extremely impressed with Dan Lanning and his staff and what they've been able to do, because a lot of teams, especially under a new regime, would have folded up after a performance like that. They wouldn't have been able to bounce back and put together the type of win streak that he's going on. So it's definitely a benefit to Georgia. If we did slip up, hopefully we don't. But that would help out for sure, having that win, because I see Oregon continue to do great things, to be right there in the Pac-12, competing for that championship and having an excellent season. So that's going to be a huge quality win that we have.
For sure. I did want to run this to you because I think everybody's going to start playing what ifs with the playoffs. So hate to say this is the easy way out, but just a scenario. So Georgia is 1. Let's say they lose a close one to Tennessee, number 3. But let's say 3-7 in Athens, maybe a late touchdown, and Georgia wins out. And that would probably, if everything goes right, Tennessee would play Alabama. And I don't think Alabama's going to have 17 penalties again. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over. Hard to beat a Nick Saban team twice. could Georgia, if everything falls in there, maybe back their way in, similar to a 2017 Alabama, and maybe get fourth seed, not have to play Alabama? I'm not saying dodge them, but do you see that maybe happening? We could back our way in, because if you lose a close one to a number 3 Tennessee team, I just don't see a number 1 team who's been number 1 throughout the season dropping all the way down to 5. What's your thoughts on that? Just saying, could, should, or whatever, if something could happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the precedent's been set. It's been done before, and then you also have to look at who we are and what we're coming off of. We are the reigning champions. So if anyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, it's us. Given that we're 2021 national champions, so if we lose a close game, I don't see why we couldn't do the same thing Alabama did a few years ago.
Right. And then one more scenario. Let's just say we do beat Tennessee, win out, and then maybe you lose a close one to Alabama, and we're number 1. Could you see us almost like that's a mulligan game similar to last year, and we still make it in the playoffs? Do you see that as a scenario?
Yeah, that's an easier scenario to see. That's almost a no-brainer. If Georgia goes undefeated, that would mean they would stay number 1 most likely. So they would be number 1 playing in the SEC championship. You lose a close game to Alabama that already has a 1 loss on their record. And the teams behind us, there's no real dominant teams this year. So I think that's almost a foregone conclusion that if we have an undefeated regular season, that we should be in there, unless we just got completely blown out in that SEC championship game.
Sure. Definitely see that. Maybe looking into the other teams, I know they got some interesting. So what's maybe your thoughts on Ohio State? I know that they haven't played a team with a pulse, haven't been ranked yet, or a team that's ranked. I think they do have actually Penn State this week. Penn State got blown out by Michigan. It's looking like the whole Michigan-Ohio State freight train for the last game. What's maybe your thoughts on Ohio State? Because their defense has gotten better. They have probably the most explosive wide receivers, and C.J. Stroud, Heisman Trophy candidate. I've watched them. They're scary, but they did kind of have a lackluster game in game 1 against Notre Dame, who I think is 3-3, 4-3, kind of an average team. So what's your thoughts on Ohio State? Because I kind of see them as that would be a difficult matchup for Georgia down the road.
Yeah, just as if you just isolated and you just looked at their team, you looked at their performance, and you looked at their roster, they're deservingly a top 4 team. My argument for them is, in reality, they should really only have to get up for 1 game. Michigan, they don't have to play lights out versus any team except for Michigan. Whereas if you look at the SEC teams, there's 3 or 4 games on the schedule that you have to play pretty close to lights out to win, or you'll lose that game. And in my opinion, that should be a penalty for Ohio State. They should have less margin for error. Where I'm talking about, if Georgia loses a game here, and they can still get in it. If Ohio State loses a game, I think that should punish them way more than an SEC team having 1 loss.
Yeah, I completely agree. They just hadn't really played anybody. I mean, they've blown out the teams they played. Like I said, it's just been a really I don't even know what their strength schedule is. I mean, it's pretty poor, but yeah, we'll see. It should be interesting. But yeah, Ohio State's the one I'm really looking at. I think Clemson is like a cat with 9 lives, just barely getting by. I think if they slide in, whatever matchup they have is going to be brutal. DJU's played well last week. He got benched, so that's the thing. The defense is not consistent. And then I think ACC is weak this year. So, I mean, I think they got a clear path. I just think that's one of those, so much like a Michigan State when they played, or even the Kelly Bryant year when they got blown out. I just think humble pie is coming. But
yeah.
There. And then real quick, wanted to touch on one other thing, the Heisman. Who do you think the clear your pick would be? Top 5 candidates currently, ESPN. Hendon Hooker has had a great year. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, and hadn't really seen too much of the Blake Corum kid. I guess he's doing okay at Michigan. So what's your thoughts on the Heisman, or who would be your maybe kind of leader going in?
Yeah, if I had to pick someone right now, it'd be CJ Stroud. But
Mhm.
this year, in my opinion, there's nobody that's really running away with it. There's no extremely dominant, player that's like your lights out. That's the guy. So I think it's open. I think that some years at this point in the season, you pretty much know, yeah, he's going to win unless something bad happened, had injury or whatever. But I think it's open, and there's a lot of football left to kind of determine who's going to get that.
Yeah, I completely agree with. I kind of go with CJ Stroud too. He's putting up video game numbers, but hasn't really kind of played anyone like you said. Hendon
Right.
and Hooker will be in the spotlight against Georgia if they have a top 2 or 3 defense. We don't want it to happen, but if he lights Georgia up. Bryce Young, I just think he's got it's going to be a disadvantage because he did win it last year, and they probably want more parity, and he has been banged up a little bit. So yeah, I'd go with CJ Stroud, but I mean, Hendon Hooker kids, it's a great story, him being a transfer and everything.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, I know you're doing the wide receiver academy, or is there any way people can follow you on social media? Or are you still trying to do the wide receiver training, and how's that going?
Yeah. We I still do that on an individual basis, and then we also do two teams this year. We did Fellowship Christian Academy and Blessed Trinity, 2 schools in Roswell that are competitive football teams. We did their whole speed and agility summer workout. So it's a 8-week program with about 105 kids at each school, which was real cool. And then as far as social media, I'm not big on social media. I got a Facebook account, but
Gotcha.
I'm an old dinosaur now, so
No problem.
I'm not on there all that much.
Okay, no problem at all. Well, Sean, I know it's late here. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and good luck with your wide receiver training, and also good luck with you coaching your kids. I think that's great. And that's another episode of Herschel Talkers, and go Dogs, and hope we get a win in Jacksonville this weekend.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Go Dogs.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Sean. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Good.